My name is Jen Dorsey. I'm a 4th grade teacher at Mechanicsville Elementary School, and today I'd like to talk to you about unit fractions. That phrase unit fractions might not be one that you're very familiar with, but it is one that our students commonly use in class. Before we get into that, let's take a moment to review what we already know about fractions. A fraction is a value that describes part of a whole. We represent fractions using a numerator and a denominator. The denominator describes how many parts a whole has been split into. If this is my whole, I can see that it's been partitioned into 2 equal parts. That means I'm going to record 2 as my denominator. Since one part of my whole has been shaded, I'm going to record that as my numerator. A numerator always describes the number of equal parts that we're focusing on. That makes this fraction 1/2. Interestingly enough, 1/2 also describes the unshaded portion of this model. Let's take a look at another example. In this model, I can see that it's been partitioned into 3 equal parts. That makes my denominator 3. And since 2 of my equal parts have been shaded, I can record 2 as my numerator. Now let's move on to the focus of today's lesson, unit fractions. A unit fraction refers to one part of a whole that's been equally divided. I'm going to make a note of that, just so we don't forget. Now, if we think back to this first example, we're describing one part of this whole that's been shaded. Since we're focusing on only one of these equal parts, 1/2 is a unit fraction. Let's look at another one. Now, I could certainly change the size and the shape of my whole here, but I'm going to keep it the same so that as the first one, so that we can take a look at the size of our unit fractions in a moment. Right now I can see that I have 1, 2, 3 equal portions, and only one of them has been shaded. That means I can record 1 as my numerator, making this shaded fraction 1/3 of the whole. 1/3 is another unit fraction. Let's look at one more. In this model, I've split my whole into 4 equal parts, and I've shaded in one of them. Because we're only focusing on one of the 4 equal parts, 1/4 is another unit fraction. Let's take a moment to look at all 3 of these unit fractions here. You might notice that 1/2, 1/3, and 1/4, those shaded portions are different sizes. And actually, the shaded portions are getting smaller each time. You might also notice that the denominators are getting larger each time. The denominator is increasing, but that's telling us that we need to split our whole into more equal parts. When we split a whole into more equal parts, the size of just one of those individual parts gets a little bit smaller. So, when the size and the shape of our wholes stays the same, and the denominator increases, the size of one portion decreases. Because our students have so many opportunities to work with unit fractions in class, they're able to understand that a fraction like 1/8 is a little bit misleading. You might think 8 is larger than 4, which is true, but 1/8 means that a whole would have to be split into 8 equal parts, making the number of parts larger, but the size of each part a little bit smaller. We can see that 1/8 is smaller than 1/4. This is how our students learn to understand unit fractions in 4th grade.